passage is from the book of Revelations, chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Revelations 1, 1 through 5. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who testifies to everything he saw, that is, the word of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. Blessed is the one who reads the word of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take heart what is written, because the time is near. John, to the 7 churches in the province of Asia, grace and peace to you from him who is, and who was, and who is to come, from the 7 spirits before his throne, and from Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the ruler of the kings of the earth. I'm a little nervous right now. I really am. I never thought I would find myself in this position. When I first entered the ministry 16 years ago, wow, I'm getting old. When I first entered the ministry 16 years ago, I was talking with a friend of mine who was also going into the ministry, and we talked about books of the Bible we thought we would never preach on. I said probably never preach on Job, at least not as a series. It's a beautiful and wonderful book, but it's very poetic and very repetitive. Difficult to make a full series about that. I think it'd be difficult to preach on Hebrews. Again, a wonderful book, but it's the heaviest theology in the New Testament. It can be difficult to bring that down to our daily lives. And in this conversation, I distinctly remember saying, I will never preach about Revelations. Yet here I am. Over the next several weeks, we are going to look at the book of Revelations. And I recognize that preaching on Revelations is like walking through a minefield. There are a lot of ways that this can go wrong. First, Revelations is a heavily symbolic book. There's symbolism throughout this book, and some of it is explained in the text, but a lot of it is not. It is left up to interpretation. So there can be various views on a passage in Revelations, and it's difficult to say that there is one view that is decisively right. There's going to be some uncertainty here, and there's not a lot we can do about that. And as I look at Revelations over the next several weeks, I'm going to try to remember that uncertainty. And I ask you to do the same. Revelations is not cut and dry, and we do a disservice to the text and to ourselves if we pretend that it is. This uncertainty is compounded by the fact that Revelations is a complex book. It is not a wild vision or a confused dream. There is a clear structure to this book. Certain themes and concepts are repeated to drive the point home. There are at least 300 references to the Old Testament throughout the book of Revelations. There's a lot going on here. And so we need to look closely if we're going to understand. Final thing that can make this dangerous is that some people are very attached to their understanding of Revelations. Now, there are 3 general ways that people have understood Revelations. And I want to mention each of these 3, though I'm just going to hit the highlights. I'm not going to go in depth here. The one way people have understood Revelations is what's called premillennialism. This is the belief that the world is going to get worse and worse until finally God intervenes. He will take all the Christians who are left out of the world, and then the world will enter 7 years of tribulation and suffering until God again acts and he sets up a 1,000-year reign on earth, and then God will create a new heavens and a new earth. A second view is called postmillennialism. That's the belief that the world's going to get better and better. The kingdom of God, the church, will advance throughout the earth until it covers the entire planet, and then there will be 1,000 years of peace on earth through the church of God, and then finally God will intervene and create a new heavens and a new earth. Third view is called amillennialism. This is the belief that the world is going to change, but it doesn't necessarily get worse or better. It just keeps going. The 1,000-year reign is not a political or earthly kingdom, but it is the reign of God in the hearts of the followers of Jesus Christ. And then God, in his own predetermined time, will intervene to create a new heavens and a new earth. So there's all-millennialism, or premillennialism, and postmillennialism. I think I've told you before that personally I am a panmillennialist. It'll all pan out in the end. Okay, I say that as kind of a joke, but actually that's the approach I'm going to take to Revelations. I am going to make an effort not to preach about premillennialism or all-millennialism or postmillennialism. Rather, I want to bring the truth of Revelation down to our lives today. Because I think there are some central themes in Revelations that matter for us right now. If the end of the world is a few years away, or if it's not for another 10,000 years, the truth of Revelation still applies to our lives today. The central themes of Revelations are the redemptive work of our God, the call to perseverance for Christians to remain faithful even in difficult times, and the fact that our God is in control even when things fall apart. Those truths are true no matter what. So if you're a panmillennialist, a premillennialist, all-millennialist, postmillennialist, it doesn't change these basic truths. And that's where my focus in Revelation is going to be in the coming weeks. So with that said, let's turn to the opening passage of Revelations. Let me set the stage for you. It was chaos. John was the last remaining disciple. It was about 90 A.D. John was still alive. All the other disciples were gone. Judas had hung himself. The other 10 apostles, along with Paul, had been executed for their faith. After being tortured, John had been exiled to the island of Patmos. Patmos is technically a part of Greece, but it's about 200 miles southeast from the mainland of Greece. And persecution of Christians was widespread throughout the Roman Empire. Emperor Nero was dead, and Nero was a madman. He was simply crazy. He tortured Christians for fun. He burnt Christians alive as torches for his garden parties. Even the people who didn't really like Christians still said Nero had just gone too far. And when Nero committed suicide, a lot of Christians breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe now things would start to get better. But then, Tiberius Flavius Caesar Dominatus Augustus came to power. Commonly just called Emperor Domitian. And Emperor Domitian was not insane like Nero. He didn't torture Christians for fun. But he did want to get rid of Christianity in the empire. He was far more organized than Nero was. Nero attacked whoever he saw, but Domitian started an empire-wide system of persecution. He made it the law of the Roman Empire that once any Christian was brought before the tribunal, he should not escape punishment unless he renounced his religion. Punishment could involve imprisonment or beatings. Usually it was death. Now, I don't think American society is nearly that bad. We obviously can worship God without fear for our safety. But I think we know what chaos is like. I think we know what uncertainty is like. We can see that chaos in the world around us. We see chaos on an international level. We see nations like North Korea continuing to pursue nuclear weapons. We see renewed violence in Syria. We see Pakistan and India, two nuclear powers, edging their way closer and closer to war. We see division in our own country. Commentators have said that the rhetoric in America right now is as severe and divisive as it has been since the Civil War. We see pollution out of control. Last October, a group of leading scientists said that we have 12 years left to make a drastic change in our society if we want to avoid the worst effects of global warming. Since that time, no nation on earth has made any major changes to the amount of pollution they're putting out. We see chaos in our own lives. We see things fall apart. We suffer loss and insecurity. We see our dreams slip through our fingers and hopes that never come to fruition. We experience this chaos. And in response to the chaos, both today and in John's day, John opened Revelations with a message of hope. It's not a hope based on a government program, or it's not hope based on a new charity or a church plan. It's not even a hope based on what God is going to do in this world. It's a hope based entirely on who Jesus Christ is. It's not a hope based on what Jesus will do, but on the person of Jesus Christ. In his opening blessing, John tells us 5 reasons that we can have hope in who Jesus is. And I want to look at each of these 5, though I'm going to take them in reverse order. First, John tells us that Jesus is the ruler of the kings of the world. When one evil emperor follows another evil emperor, people can start to wonder where God is. Why is he allowing this to continue? But John tells us that Jesus is the ruler of the kings of the earth. Now, president might say, I'm the ruler. I have the election, I've got the Constitution, I'm in charge. John reminds us that Jesus is really the one in charge, that he is the ruler of the kings of the earth. I think this is not a very popular doctrine in America today. We like the idea of us being in charge. We to choose who the ruler is going to be. But John reminds us that God is the one who makes that choice, that the Lord raises rulers up and he brings them back down. Now, this doesn't mean that every ruler, every king, every president is necessarily obedient to Christ. It doesn't mean they always do what is right. It means they are always used by God. The prophet Habakkuk reminds us that even the worst rulers in history, the rulers of the Assyrians or the Babylonians, were still used by God. And still today, our God is the ruler of the kingdoms of the kings of the world. When political leaders proclaim their power, they beat their chest, I just have to imagine God kind of smiles amusedly and keeps on being the ruler, because he is the ruler of the kings of the earth. Second, Jesus is the firstborn from the dead. This phrase became almost a cliche in the early church. It was a way of saying that Jesus is the first one to rise from the dead, but it encompasses so much more than that. Jesus is the firstborn from the dead. Since he is the firstborn, he is supreme over all. He is the first, the start, the beginning of new life, and he has come to bring life in his wake. Since he is the firstborn from the dead, he is worthy of all praise. He has done what only God can do. He has conquered death and brought new life. Now even the angels of heaven worship him. And because he is the firstborn of the dead, he offers us new life. He's the first. He is the beginning. He is the supreme ruler who has brought life and is worthy of worship from men and angels. The fact that he is first means there will be more to follow. He invites us into his new life. And when life seems chaotic and out of control, we can remember that Jesus Christ has brought life. Unadulterated, uncompromising, unequivocal, genuine life. We can rejoice because Jesus is the firstborn from the dead. So, Jesus is the ruler of the kings of the earth, and he's the firstborn from the dead. Third, Jesus is the faithful witness. We live in a post-truth world. We live in a world where people do not trust other outlets of news. We live in a world where people decide what is true not based on facts or research, but on what they feel. Opinion has replaced truth. A recent survey from Pew Research found that people on the whole trust media less than they ever have before. Our trust in media is at an all-time low. Not only that, 60% of people say that they believe that professional reporters will just make up a story or take money to write about someone in a positive light. And when we have so little trust for media, for scientists, for politicians, how can we find truth? Where do we go when it seems like there isn't truth anywhere? Well, John tells us Jesus is the faithful witness. His word is truth. Now, if you feel lost, if you're trying to figure out what's real, what's true, go to the words of Jesus. His word is true. He is the faithful witness because he is God. God cannot be tempted by evil, and God does not lie. So if you feel lost, if you don't know what is true, go to the words of the faithful witness. So, Jesus is a ruler of the kings of the earth, the firstborn of the dead, and the faithful witness. Fourth, John tells us Jesus is the one who was, and who is to come. He is the unchanging God. He is the God who was. All our past mistakes, all our sins, every time that we have done what we knew was wrong, has all been wiped away. He has taken away every sin. He has cleaned our past. And our past includes 10 minutes ago. He has redeemed us. He is the God who was. And he is the God who is. He is the great I am. He is with us right now. When we feel lost, when we don't know where to turn, our God is with us at this moment. He is the God who is. And he's the God who will be. He was here before time existed. He will remain when this universe is a distant memory. He is the God who will be. When everything seems uncertain, our God knows what is coming. The future will not take him off guard, and so we have nothing to fear. Because we have the God who will be, the God who was, the God who is, the God who will be is on our side. He is the unchanging God. He was merciful in the past. He will be merciful in the future. And so, when things fall apart, when people renege on the promises that really matter, when the world changes the rules on us, when nothing seems firm, turn to the God who was, and who is, and who will be. And fifth, and finally, John tells us that Jesus is the one who gives grace and peace. Really, this is what everything else was leading up to. This is John's blessing for us, that we have grace and peace because Jesus is the ruler of the kings of the earth, because he is a faithful witness, because he is the firstborn of the dead, and because he is the one who was and is to come. All of that leads us to the fact that we can have grace and peace. I've found that people sometimes get confused about the word grace. Grace is anything that is undeserved, anything that is unearned. In a world consumed with what we are entitled to, with what we deserve, Jesus is the one who gives us what we don't deserve. And Jesus is the one who gives us peace. He gives us peace because of who he is. He gives us peace because he is the ruler of the kings of the world. The things that keep the people of this world up late at night. The fear of things they can't control does not need to hold us down. Because when the world seems to be going crazy, Jesus is the ruler of the kings of the earth. He is the faithful witness. When we are unsure, when we are lost, when we don't know where to turn, Jesus is the faithful witness that we can turn to. He is the firstborn from the dead. Even death itself has lost its power over us. And so we can have hope. We can have peace. Because he is with us. He is the firstborn of the dead. And he is the one who was and is to come. We don't need to fear. We can have peace because the unchanging God, the God who is always with us, is here now. He was with us in the past, he is with us now, and he will be with us in the future. I found that people often focus on fear when they read the book of Revelations. They think of it as the scary book of the Bible. But John opens the book of Revelations with a message of peace, a message of hope. Jesus is alive today. He is the ruler who reigns in power. He is the one who has conquered death. He is the faithful witness. He is the one who was and is to come. And because of all this, John says we can have grace in him and we can have peace. We do not need to fear. In a moment, we're going to stand for our invitation hymn. And if you need that peace, if fear has been running your life, if the world has seemed out of control, and you don't know where to turn, you have an opportunity. There is a God who was and is to come, who desires to give you peace. As you'll stand with me now for invitation hymn, which is number 331, Room at the Cross, and we'll sing all the verses.